My name is Jack, I'm 30 years old, and I'm a painter. My world used to be made up of the smells of paint, drywall, and sweat. At 18, I left behind the confusion of adolescence, skipped college, and apprenticed under a master painter in town named Old Henry, a descendant of Polish immigrants. His hands were rough as sandpaper, but the walls he painted were smooth as glass. The first thing he taught me wasn't how to mix paint, but to respect your work, because it'll reward you. He'd say every wall is a canvas, and our job is to give it new life and dignity. I took those words to heart. By 20, I could hold my own, and Old Henry patted my shoulder and said, "Kid, you're ready to make your way." So I spent all my savings on a used Ford Transit van, beat up with dents and a roar when it started, but I named it Old Buddy, and it marked the start of my independent career. Back then, my heart burned with the purest, most classic American dream. I dreamed that one day, in the not-too-distant future, I'd buy a house with a small yard in the Ohio town where I grew up. Not too big, but with a backyard where I could grow tomatoes and a lawn for my dog to roll around on. I wanted to marry a kind woman who'd understand me coming home reeking of paint, who'd hand me an ice-cold beer, and we'd watch our kids run around the lawn together. That dream, like the primer I carefully mixed before painting a wall, was the foundation of all my efforts. For that dream, I became almost a monk-like laborer. At 5:30 a.m., when the town was still shrouded in mist, my old buddy was already roaring toward the job site. I never overslept because I knew every wasted hour pushed me further from my dream. I poured all my youth and energy into those cold, unfinished buildings. Every dollar I earned carried the scent of turpentine and the dust of drywall, and I knew it didn't come easy. So my life was frugal to the extreme. My wardrobe consisted of work clothes, a few discounted t-shirts, and jeans. I never ate lunch out. Every day, it was a sandwich and a bottle of water prepared the night before. While my peers partied at bars, I was in the garage maintaining my tools or studying new paint techniques. My entertainment was driving Old Buddy to the river on weekends to fish and enjoy a moment of peace. Year after year, like a diligent worker ant, I saved every penny in the bank. By early 2020, just before the COVID-19 pandemic swept the globe, I had $40,000 in my account. That $40,000, earned through 10 years of sweat, loneliness, and discipline, was the cornerstone of my dream and the source of my confidence. The pandemic hit like a sudden storm, disrupting everyone's rhythm. At first, I wasn't too anxious. Work paused, but I used the time to fix up Old Buddy, organize my tools, or stay home watching movies with a beer, enjoying rare downtime. That first year passed calmly. But by 2022, things got complicated. Economic uncertainty spread like the virus itself. The construction industry took a huge hit, and projects became sporadic. I'd get a call to resume work, excitedly load my tools, only to hear the next day that the project was delayed again due to supply chain issues or some other unexpected problem. My income became wildly unstable, and the numbers in my bank account stopped growing. The dream of that house with a yard began to feel shadowed. Anxiety, like mold seeping through walls in damp weather, started to spread quietly in my heart. At my most lost, a colleague, Mike, re-entered my life. We'd known each other for years, not best friends, but we worked well together. He was skilled but smoother than me, more in tune with enjoying life. He drove a better car, wore trendier clothes, though I knew he didn't work nearly as hard as I did. Our relationship was mutually beneficial. When he was swamped with urgent jobs, I'd drop everything to help. When I needed an extra hand, he'd pitch in. That afternoon, he called me via video, looking smug with a cozy home in the background, not a messy job site. Without much small talk, he mysteriously pitched a new venture that could make easy money in tough times. That venture? Online gambling. My first reaction was caution and resistance. My upbringing and values told me gambling was dangerous, a shortcut to ruin. I flatly refused. But Mike didn't give up. With convincing flair, he explained it wasn't gambling but mathematical arbitrage. His logic sounded airtight, almost scientific. He said we'd register on 2 different betting sites, exploit their sign-up bonuses and cashback offers, and place hedged bets. For example, in a basketball game, we'd bet on the home team on one site and the away team on the other. Since it was hedged, we'd win one and lose one, preserving our capital while pocketing the bonuses. He showed me his banking app, with clear records of hundreds of dollars in deposits. "Look, Jack," he said, his voice dripping with temptation. "This is way easier than painting walls in the blazing sun, right? A few clicks, and you're making hundreds. In times like these, who says no to money?" His pitch shook my anxious heart, and I started to waver. It sounded like a business hustle, not luck-based gambling. The next day, I caved, and somehow ended up moving into his rented apartment. Everything was set up, 2 computers flashing sports odds, the air thick with the smell of takeout pizza and energy drinks, a mix of laziness and frenzy. We pooled $5,000 as startup capital $2,500 per platform to unlock the highest newbie bonuses. For the next few days, everything went as Mike promised. We followed the hedging strategy, spent a few hours daily at the computers, and reliably made $200 to $300 in profit. A weight lifted from my chest, and I even felt smug about my smarts. I saw it as a temporary side gig to offset project delays. But fate always turns when you least expect it. The biggest risk in this arbitrage was human error. That afternoon, betting on a tennis match, maybe tired from hours of clicking, I made a fatal mistake. I bet on the same player on both platforms. When I hit confirm and saw the bet placed message, I realized what I'd done. My blood froze. Bets can't be undone, and we were no longer in safe arbitrage territory. We'd handed $2,000 plus to chance. My heart pounded like a war drum, my palms sweaty. A good day painting barely earned me $300, and now, one mistake could cost us nearly a month's income. I slumped in my chair, dizzy, unable to watch the match. I covered my eyes, muttering, "It's over, it's over." Mike was nervous but calmer. When the match ended, he yanked my hands from my face, his voice trembling with excitement. "Jack, look, we won. We won." I opened my eyes. The player we bet on had won. Not only did we not lose, we doubled our profit. That $2,000 windfall, like a bolt of lightning, shattered the values I'd built over 30 years. The euphoria was unlike anything I'd felt. I leapt from my chair, ran to the balcony, and shouted into the distance. As a painter, I inhaled harsh chemicals, climbed ladders, ached all over, and dealt with picky clients inspecting corners with flashlights, all for $2,000 that took so much toil and patience. But in that 1 minute, I'd made the same, if not more. That mistake wasn't a warning, it was an epiphany. I started to think my old way of earning money was foolish, inefficient. But the good times didn't last. The platform's risk systems were smarter than we thought. Days later, one site froze half our funds for suspicious betting activity. We emailed, called customer service, pleaded, but got only cold, official responses. Our surefire, arbitrage path was blocked. Panic and anger hit me, but my mindset had subtly shifted. With no other choice, I took the remaining money from the other platform and, clinging to hope, gambled directly to recoup the frozen funds. I told myself, just this once, then I'd stop. Unbelievably, luck was on my side that day. I won several bets, not only recovering the loss but pocketing nearly $3,000 extra. If the first accidental win was the start of temptation, this deliberate victory pushed me into the abyss. I was lost. I no longer saw it as a hustle, but believed I'd found a highway to financial freedom. I even fantasized that, with continued luck, I could buy that house outright within a year, trade my beat-up van for a new pickup. I was utterly captivated by the illusion of easy money. Life always throws in a twist when you're at your cockiest, making you think you still have choices. While I was hooked on the thrill of gambling, my uncle introduced me to a girl named Sarah. He gave me her contact, and we started chatting on WhatsApp. Sarah was a gentle, kind woman who worked at the town library. Her voice was soothing, calming me when I was upset over losses. We began dating, and life seemed to return to normal. I worked on restarting job sites, built a relationship with her, and the busy days kept me off the betting site. I even thought, maybe settling down like this wasn't so bad. If only I'd stopped there. By year's end, Sarah moved to my city, and we started living together. She was open about her past. She'd been divorced and had a 5-year-old son, now cared for by her parents. Looking into my eyes, she said, "Jack, this is me. If you mind, we can end it now." I looked at her sincere face and shook my head. My gambling-warped heart felt a warmth I hadn't known in ages. My parents didn't care about her past either. They thought I was lucky to find a woman willing to build a life with me. The next spring, we moved in together. For a more comfortable life, I used some gambling winnings to rent a $1,500 a month apartment. Those were the closest days to my dream. I'd come home from work to Sarah's hot meals. She'd wash my paint-stained clothes, massage my tired shoulders. Like any ordinary couple, we'd grocery shop on weekends, argue over movie plots. We never used protection, both feeling we were old enough that if a child came, we'd marry right away. Fate seemed kind. 3 months into living together, Sarah was pregnant. The news thrilled my parents. I felt immense joy, but it was followed by overwhelming pressure. Sarah began planning our future, gently saying, "Jack, we need a stable home for the kid. I'd love a house in town near my parents, so school's easier later." She didn't know that stable home meant a huge expense to me. In our town, a decent house needed at least a $40,000 down payment, with renovations and furniture an endless pit. Looking at my dwindling savings, eaten by rent and living costs, and my now unstable income from gambling, a panic I'd never felt gripped me. I couldn't tell her where my money came from, or that I'd lost some. I just smiled and promised I'd work hard. That's when the devilish urge resurfaced. I told myself I needed money. For Sarah, for our unborn child, I had to get it fast. And I knew only one fast way. I justified my gambling, saying it wasn't for thrills, but for our family's future. My plan sounded beautiful yet insane. Win a little, and the pressure would ease. Win $10,000, and I could install top-notch AC in the nursery and our bedroom. Win $50,000, and I could redo the floors and kitchen. Win $100,000, and all renovation costs would be covered, letting us welcome our baby stress-free. The idea grew like wildfire in my mind. I reopened that familiar website. During lunch breaks at the job site, lying on cold cardboard, I'd recharge and bet with paint-stained fingers. I set a seemingly realistic goal, win a little each day, building up gradually. But gambling's rule is, once you play with goals and pressure, you've already lost. Reality slapped me hard. One afternoon, I lost $5,000. I went crazy, wanting to recharge and win it back, but my bank card wouldn't transfer. The screen showed the transaction was declined. I called the bank, and the rep coldly said my account was temporarily frozen by their risk system for high-risk transactions. I'd need to visit a branch in person with ID to unfreeze it. In one afternoon, I lost $5,000, my card was frozen, and I'd lose a full day's work to fix it. Sitting in Old Buddy, watching people pass by, I felt abandoned by the world, consumed by frustration and despair. The next day, I took leave from the job site to unfreeze my account. I lied to the bank staff, saying my account might have been hacked. They warned me about account safety and restored it, but their warnings meant nothing to me. Like a drowning man, I saw gambling as my only lifeline. After unfreezing the card, I poured more money into the site. I grew reckless, gambling day and night, barely eating or sleeping. Predictably, my card was frozen again. This time, the call wasn't from the bank, but an unfamiliar number. A stern man, claiming to be a detective from a neighboring county's police department, said the betting platform's servers and funds were in their jurisdiction. They were cracking down on online fraud, and my account was frozen as part of the investigation. He ordered me to visit their station at a set time for questioning. When I hung up, it felt like the sky collapsed. I was a painter, an ordinary blue-collar guy whose farthest trip was to a neighboring state for a ball game. Now, I had to go to an unfamiliar police station because of gambling. I didn't sleep all night, frantically searching Google and YouTube. Can you be arrested for online gambling? What happens if your bank account is frozen by police? Will I go to jail? Each result deepened my fear. I dreaded detention, a criminal record, and Sarah and my parents finding out. In endless fear, I drove Old Buddy to the neighboring state. The journey was long and agonizing, the scenery changing outside, but my heart stayed gray. The police station was an ordinary building, but to me, it was the gates of hell. The officer who met me was young and polite. He led me to a small room, gave me water, and instead of harsh interrogation, educated me on the dangers of online gambling. He said these glossy platforms were run by sophisticated fraud rings. Young man, you're not playing against luck, you're up against con artists who know human nature. You can't win. They give you a taste of victory to make you think you're lucky, then clean you out when you're hooked. He said since I was a first-time offender with a relatively small amount, this was just a warning. My account would be unfrozen after the investigation, but next time, they'd pursue harsher measures, including detention or prosecution. I left the station dazed, sat in my car, and couldn't calm down. The officer's words hammered my nerves. Logic told me to stop and return to my old life. But thinking of the money I'd lost, my decade of sweat, the foundation of my dream, my pride, cut like a knife. I wasn't willing to let it go. That intense unwillingness drowned out fear and reason. I couldn't just walk away. I had to win it back, or I couldn't face myself, Sarah, or our unborn child. To bypass bank oversight and avoid police attention, I devised what I thought was a clever plan. On a gambling forum, I read about using cryptocurrency for deposits, anonymous and hard to trace. I learned to set up a crypto wallet, buy USDT, a dollar-pegged stablecoin, from anonymous coin dealers via OTC trades, and deposit it into new betting platforms. After winning, I'd sell the coins back to dealers, converting them to dollars in a new bank account. I congratulated myself for finding a way around regulations, thinking I'd opened a new door, unaware it led to a deeper hell. In the next 2 months, I went completely mad. Crypto's anonymity freed me from all restraint. I converted all my unfrozen account money into crypto and threw it into this gamble. Like a blindfolded lunatic, I sprinted toward a cliff. The result was predictable. The $40,000 I'd saved drop by drop since I was 18, the cornerstone of my dream, my proud capital, vanished in clicks and refreshes. When my crypto wallet hit zero, I sat in a dark room, my soul drained. I couldn't tell Sarah. I feared she'd leave me or worse, terminate the pregnancy. That child was my only hope and anchor. I told myself I had to pull it together. But pathetically, the only way I saw to pull it together, and change my situation was still gambling.